Hello everyone, my name is Livia and you might know me from the show 유학소녀, which was aired on Mnet earlier this year. And so during the show, it was kind of revealed that I know some Korean. I would say that I'm not completely fluent, but I speak it to some extent conversationally so that I can make myself understood and I can understand others quite well. So a lot of people have been asking me, how I've been learning Korean by myself because I'm self-taught. So I thought that I was going to tell you all my story about how I learned Korean first, and then I'm going to give you some tips on how you can learn Korean as well. So I started by learning Hangul, and there's multiple ways you can learn Hangul, which is the Korean writing system. And I did it by watching YouTube videos. So I watched videos by a girl named Sweet and Tasty. So I'll put that up here. And her videos were amazing. She was very good at explaining the pronunciation and the different consonants and vowels, and she had multiple different videos for vowels separately and the consonants, and also double consonants and diphthongs, and splitting them up into small sections, which made it a lot easier to learn. And so parallel to that, I would also practice using a grid that I found online, and it was just like a grid where it was all of the consonants paired with the vowel a. And so I would practice writing all the consonants like that and the vowel as well by hand. And I actually have an old picture on my Instagram, which I don't think it's public anymore, but I'll put it up here so you can see me practicing this. What is it now? Almost 8 years ago when I started learning Korean, because I started learning Hangul in late 2011. An interesting point was that at the time, which was a very long time ago now, Talk to Me in Korean used to be free, like a free website. So I started by learning all of their level 1 lessons. So I got quite far on there and I learned some words and stuff, but I still didn't have a good grasp on the grammar. What happened next was that in February of 2012, I went to London for the first time. I actually went to the UK for the first time. And when I went there, we went to Foyle's bookstore, which is a huge bookstore. I think it has maybe 5 or 6 floors. And one of those floors is a language section. And I thought that I will be so lucky if I can find a Korean language section, because I think at the time when I started learning Korean, it wasn't very popular. Obviously, K-pop was very popular, but it still wasn't very internationally popular. And so I think learning Korean still wasn't a big thing. But I was very lucky to find the small section that they had, which was not very big. I would say maybe less than 1 meter in width. And then there was just a few rows of books. But I actually got all of these books. I didn't end up using all of these books actually, but I'll show you the ones that I did use. So actually from all those books, I only ended up using these 2 so far. I'm working on the intermediate Korean, but the one that was the most influential for me in learning Korean was this one, which is Basic Korean by, Andrew Sang-pil-pyeon. And this one is really good. I would say that the writing style is quite rigid, so it might be a bit hard to understand if English is not your first language. I know I felt that way because at the time I was good at English, but I wasn't university level, but this is quite advanced English, I would say. This is how I learned grammar, and it's also how I learned counting words and, different words for I think it's called kinship terms, so family words like aunt, uncle, grandmother, mother-in-law, stuff like that. That's quite difficult to learn if you don't have a structured way of learning it. I also used to take notes in this book. I know, you can tell that I was quite young when I started learning Korean, right? And so I used to take these notes from the Basic Korean book that I just showed you. And I'll show you a little bit here. So just practice and write out the different rules. I also did the exercises that were featured in the book. So I would do those in a different book, in a different booklet. So I would write out different sentences, translate sentences, and stuff like that. And that really, really helped. After this, I actually started using an app called Doki Doki, which was a messaging app. And it was basically omegle in the sense that you would just send a message out into the world like randomly and someone could respond to it. And a lot of people who were on there back in the day were from South Korea, so it was easy for me to find people to talk to and practice Korean with. At the time, it used to be very innocent, but I know that when I tried to go back a few years later, it was a bit more unsavory. So I don't know if I can recommend it anymore, but there's other great apps like Hello Talk, where you can talk to strangers and practice and exchange languages. So I actually managed to match with a lot of people there, some of who I still keep in touch with today actually. And they helped me learn Korean. You know, I would write messages with, you know, what little Korean I knew at the time, and they would correct me, or if I had questions, they would reply and say, oh, this is what this means and this is why you say this instead of this, and I would also help them with English in return. So it was a very good exchange. Unfortunately, I don't have my old KakaoTalk account anymore, so I can't show you examples, but this is really interesting actually. I saw that one of my old pen pals apparently had made a long forum post online, which I will link below, which was about how they had talked to me when I was younger, and how I was growing up when I was like, I don't know, 15, 16 or something. So I'll link that post below. It's all in Korean, but you might have some luck Google translating it, I don't know. But the whole reason I'm bringing this up is that by talking to people online, I actually got to practice my Korean and how to form sentences, and if I made a mistake, I would be corrected right away. And if I have questions about what anything meant, they could tell me right away what it meant. So it was very, very useful. And I could always have like a very handy dictionary on my phone ready if I didn't understand like one or two words in the sentences they were saying. And so I would learn, you know, words from that too. If there was just one word I didn't understand, I could look it up and learn it from there. So far, I've been talking about how I learned a lot through watching YouTube videos, but also by using books and practicing writing and reading and stuff like that. But I would say that the most important part for me in learning vocabulary and also learning, you know, expressions and more advanced grammar was actually by watching variety shows. So around the time I started learning Korean, that's when I started switching over to variety shows. I started watching Running Man in 2012. And I watched it for years, like into high school, which was like in 2014, 2015. So I watched it for a very long time, weekly. Like I would follow the episodes as they came out. I was a very big fan. And when I watched Running Man, I actually learned so much about different historical places and historical events, but I also learned a lot about, you know, cultural things and different Korean games that I've never seen before. Because I also loved Running Man, I also loved the host, which was Yoo Jae-seok. So I started looking into more shows that had him as the host, and so I found Family Outing. And Family Outing is a very, very old show at this point. I think it's more than 10 years old, but it's great. It's absolutely hilarious. It's a very nice and family dynamic. They learn about cooking food and like using the resources they have. But what was most important was that that's how I learned a lot about the words for different vegetables and different cooking ingredients and different dishes, and that was really useful because it taught me a lot about Korean cuisine. But I also learned a lot about, you know, harvesting of Korean crops, and also again about games that they would play whilst they were doing their work, and etc, etc. So it's very useful to watch variety shows, not just for the entertainment of course, but also to learn both about the culture and the language, because you learn all the words for like, oh, what's this vegetable or whatever, but you also learn about like, what's this game called, or what's this ritual called, or you know, whatever. I know that I'm rambling and talking about my favorite shows and whatever, but my point is that I didn't have anyone to practice with, and so I didn't know how to express myself or how to put certain thoughts into words. So it was really, really useful for me to watch how other people did that, how actual Korean people talk to each other, not just what you see online or in a book, like how do they actually interact with each other. And so watching that through a variety show was very, very helpful, because after all, just knowing grammar and words doesn't mean that you know how to combine those and construct sentences properly. So it's very useful to see and observe how other people do it, before you try it yourself. So now you've been listening to me talking for such a long time about how I learned Korean, but now I want to give you some tips on how you can learn Korean. I want you to remember that everyone learns in a different way. I always like to learn by myself, so that's why self-study helped me a lot. But it might not be the right choice for you. So I think you should follow what suits your style. But if you choose to follow what I do, then here are my tips. Number 1, start learning Hangul and also learn the pronunciation. Hangul is not like Hanzi, so it's not like you're learning thousands and thousands of characters in order to be able to construct a few sentences. It's more like you're just using an alphabet like when you're speaking in English. So it's a lot easier to learn, and some people say it only takes a few hours to learn even. So supposedly Hangul is the most logical alphabet there is actually, because it's modeled after what your mouth and your tongue looks like when you say different letters. Do you know what's even better about the Korean writing system? Is that if I compare it to when I write in Swedish or when I write in English, I find that when I write in Korean, I say it exactly as how I write it. There are a few exceptions, but I would say in like more than 90% of the cases, if it's written a certain way, that's how you say it. And it's very easy. So as soon as you know how to read Korean, you also know how to speak it. So number 2. Grammar is best learned from a book. So I think grammar comes next because you can get so far by just knowing a few basic conjugations. And so learning grammar from a book can be very helpful because it gives you a very structured manner of learning it, and so it's easier to learn the different conjugations. But what's really important for you to keep in mind here is the cultural importance. I won't go into detail too much about it here, but Korea has a very strong cultural importance in their language, and so you can't just learn the language without learning anything about the culture. They kind of go hand in hand. Number 3 is vocabulary. This is the bane of my existence. I think a lot of people overestimate my Korean skills because I have step 1 and step 2 down, but my vocabulary is very small in my opinion, and vocabulary is kind of the way that you can tell a beginner apart from a pro. In my case, I am terrible at learning vocabulary. I'm not the kind of person who can just, read a list and remember it right away, but some of my friends are, and I am so jealous. So in my case, since I was terrible at learning vocabulary from a list, instead I learned a lot of it from variety shows, from watching them on TV, and then seeing how those words are being used in their different contexts, because then I have something to associate the meanings of the words to. And obviously you won't get anywhere without practice. So for example, you could use the app HelloTalk that I was talking about before, where you can talk to Koreans who want to learn English, and you can teach them English while they teach you Korean. So it's a very good language exchange app. Also personally, because I'm weird, I sometimes like to talk to myself when I'm just at home by myself, or if I'm walking home at night when there's no one around. I like to practice talking to myself and explaining things so I can practice constructing sentences verbally, because I find it very different between if I'm just texting with someone and if I'm actually talking to find the right words in the sentence. And so now, after learning Korean for a few years, I can watch shows and I can, I spoke to the staff members on our show as well in Korean, and I understood basically everything that they said, so it's very good for you to keep practicing. Lastly, I want you to know that I learned what I know over multiple years, but I also didn't learn every day. I only practiced like a little bit here and there because I was too busy with school and other stuff when I was growing up. But if you have the time to study every day and study very intensively and learn, vocabulary every week and stuff like that, I think you can reach my level of Korean or go way past it in just maybe 1 or 2 years. So I would say practice every day and you'll be able to do it a lot faster than I have. So I hope you guys enjoyed watching me ramble about how I learned Korean. So I hope if you enjoyed this video that you can click the like button, and if you want to watch more of my upcoming videos, then just click the subscribe button and also press the bell icon so you get the notifications. So I hope to see you guys next time. Bye!